Rising community, and welcome to the Rise Summit. Today we're talking about passion, purpose, and prosperity. And our guest is Lynne Twist, and she is such an aligned speaker, and I want to read you her bio. She is the founder of the Soul Money Institute and author of the best-selling book, The Soul of Money: Transforming Your Relationship with Money and Life. Over the past 40 years, Lynne has worked with over 100,000 people in 50 countries. Her clients include Microsoft, Procter & Gamble, the International Unity Church, Charles Schwab, United Way, the National Black Theater of Harlem, Harvard University, and others. I am so thrilled to have you here, Lynne. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's delightful to be here, Nuna. Thank you.
Right. So before we talk about your new book, I know you are cooking something amazing. I really want to also touch on your best-selling book, Soul of Money. I think that this is still a very alive wound in many, especially women, right? I know for me, it was for so many years. So I am passionate about bringing this kind of teachings to our community because really, I'll pass it on to you. You'll probably explain it better than me, but I just feel into the importance of it.
Yeah, there's a almost like a deficit mentality that we have around money, all of us, but particularly women. So you're right about that.
Yeah. And
you want me to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, please do. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I work with both men and women, but the culture that we live in, whether it's in South Africa or in the United States or Japan or Europe or Latin America, anywhere in the world, promotes a mindset of scarcity, and a mindset of scarcity that's so intense and so overbearing. It's almost like we're swimming in thoughts. There's not enough. It's not enough. We don't have enough. I'm not enough. It's not enough. We don't have enough. There's not enough. I'm not enough. And those thoughts, those negative thoughts, are so prevalent, and particularly in the intensity of the consumer culture in which we live, which forces that message on us every day. You're not enough until you buy this, or until you consume that, or until you take this, or until you change that about yourself. That it's created a deficit experience of ourselves. It's not just there's not enough, it's not enough. It starts to be I am not enough. And that experience, I am not enough, is very poignant for women. Also because we're in a patriarchal culture that puts women in second place, has women trying to be like men rather than be ourselves, and sort of blocks the flow of what I call the divine feminine, which I can tell by looking at you, you're very in touch with. So I talk a lot about in the book, The Soul of Money, the mindset of scarcity, which has 3 toxic myths that I call the lie of scarcity. I actually think the scarcity mentality is a very, very unfortunate and dark and difficult part of our culture that's actually based in a lie, an unconscious, unexamined mindset. And the suffering around money that most people have, and many people, most people, men and women, I think is rooted in that lie, this unconscious, unexamined belief that there's not enough to go around, that someone somewhere is going to be left out, that more is always better no matter what, and that that's just the way that it is. And those 3 things that I've just said, there's not enough, more is better, and that's just the way that it is, are 3 parts of what I call the toxic myth of a consumer culture that catches you and sort of, obsesses you with there's not enough to go around. I'm going to run out. I'm not good enough. I'm not tall enough. I don't have enough. I'm in danger. I'm not secure. That's the there's not enough. And then more is better, more shoes, more black pants, more blue jeans, more this, more square feet in my house, more market share, more, indiscriminately more. And then that's just the way that it is the third part of the 3 toxic myths. There's not enough, more is better. That's just the way that it is. And that's just the way that it is, holds the whole mindset in place, as if we can't do anything about it, as if we're just the victims of it. And so I call the 3 toxic myths the lie of scarcity. And Buddha said the source of all suffering is a lie. And to me, the suffering we feel in our relationship with money doesn't belong to us. It's in the culture. And then we personalize it as the source of all suffering is a lie. The source of that monetary anxiety, constant fear around money, that suffering comes from the culture that constantly tells us we're not enough until we have more of almost anything. And so we're in an environmental crisis. We're taking way more from the earth than we need. We're in a political crisis. People are taking way more than they need to try to get themselves seen and heard. We're in an economic crisis. We're in a health crisis. People are eating more than they need. There's obesity's off the charts. We're in a more is better culture that has us by the throat and has us so unhappy. And no matter how much we have, and I can testify to this because I work with some of the families that are very, very troubled, that are billionaire families on this planet, where the dysfunction just gets amplified by the money rather than resolved, that more is not necessarily better. And all the studies say that once people meet their basic needs, having more does not make them happier. In fact, starts to make them more miserable. So we're in a culture and a time and a epic moment in history when the patriarchal colonial way of thinking, the commercial way of thinking, the culture that we've been born into is so distorted that we constantly feel bad about ourselves and are scrambling for more of everything. And when it doesn't make us happy, we think, well, I just don't have enough. I need more of that. Well, that's not enough. So I just need more of that. And it's endless. It's a hamster wheel. It never turns out. I can tell you from people who have billions of dollars, they're still scrambling for more, as if there's something that they need that they don't have yet. And so that's the kind of story of our culture. And the good news is you don't have to live that way. And I'm sure that's what you teach. I'm sure that's what you're all about. I can see it in your beautiful face. This experience of being enough exactly the way you are is what people crave, only they think it comes from more rather than paying attention to what they already have. So that's kind of in a nutshell, the Soul of Money message in the Soul of Money book. It's really about discovering, uncovering, telling the truth, the radical, surprising truth of enough, that we're sufficient just the way that we are. And that if we let go of trying to get more of what we don't really need, it frees up oceans of energy all tied up in that chase to turn and pay attention to what we already have, to who we already are. And when we give who we already are, what we already have, our attention, our love, our nourishment, and when we share that, it expands. It expands. So it's sort of the opposite of what we think. It's not taking more out of lack and fear, but paying attention to what's already there and contributing it that gives us the sense of fulfillment, prosperity, and satisfaction. So that's really the message of the Soul of Money book that I think is still relevant today, even though I wrote it 20 years ago.
Yeah, and sure, it's you can tell it about our wounds that also so related to money. It can be not getting enough attention from our parents. And then we look on the external when actually the pain is internal. And so money can be, as you said, an enhancer. It can amplify the negative energy. It can also amplify the positive. So I really want to take the conversation into how can we establish the healthy relationship with money, that we know how to use it without it's abusing us in a beautiful creation.
Well, that's a wonderful topic. If we think of money a little bit like water, we have a healthier relationship with it. So if you think of water, water when it's moving, purifies, cleanses, makes things green, makes things grow. When it's hoarded or held or tried to possess it, it becomes stagnant and toxic to those who hold on to it. That's one metaphor. Another metaphor is blood. When blood is moving through the body, it does all kinds of beautiful things. It carries nutrients and energy, and it also cleanses and purifies us. But when it clots, it can kill. And money's a lot like that. Money doesn't belong to any of us. It belongs to all of us, or it belongs to none of us. It's a currency. It's a current. That's why it's called a currency, because it's a current. It's meant to flow through the universe, through all of us. And for some of us, it's a little trickle. And for others of us, it's a rushing river. For some people are flooded with it. But that doesn't make them good or bad or any of that. It's just our job is to move it, to let it nourish our life, just like water does. Let it nourish our life. Let it take good care of us and the people that we're responsible for, but then to pass it on where it'll do the most good for the most people and for the world itself. And the passing it on includes spending it, investing it, but also contributing it and earning it. If we earn it in ways that we feel good about, then we're compensated for our service to the world rather than we're scrambling to try to make money. So it's I'm sure you teach this, but for women in particular, we have such a sense of flow. Energy, the yin energy is the flow energy. It's not about amounts. It's about the direction of the flow and managing the flow and calibrating the flow in a way that's healthy and well. And that's the energy of the divine feminine. I call this the Sophia century because I believe that we're in the first century of the third millennium, the first 100-year cycle of the third millennium. And we're only 22 years in. And it's a new era. It's a completely new era. And in my estimation, and there's a lot of prophecies that say this first century of the third millennium is the Sophia century, the century of divine feminine wisdom coming through us, coming through you, coming through the people that are listening, coming through women and coming through men. And the world is hurting and hungering and has an appetite and a yearning for divine feminine energy now. And the Sophia century is the century when this will come through, in my view. It's a century when women will take our rightful role in co-equal partnership with men, and the world will come into balance. It's a century when the masculine and the feminine will find their way to work together rather than one dominate the other. It's a century that has been prophesied by the Baha'i people. And they tell this beautiful prophecy, which I'd love to share, which says that the bird of humanity has two great wings, a male wing and a female wing. And for centuries, the male wing has been fully extended, fully expressed, and flying really with great strength, while the female wing of the bird of humanity has been truncated a little bit and folded in and not yet fully expressed. So the male wing in the bird of humanity, the male wing in all of us, has become overdeveloped, over muscular, and now has become violent. And the bird of humanity has thus been flying in circles for hundreds of years. And this is the century when the female wing in all of us will fully express itself, fully extend. Then the male wing can relax in all of us, in men and women. And the bird of humanity, for the first time in centuries, will soar. And I love that prophecy because it doesn't make masculine wrong and feminine right. It just says we're overdeveloped in one aspect of who we are, and we're underdeveloped in the other aspect. And when we fully develop, we'll become balanced and whole and really be able to fly. So I see that in the healthy relationship with money, this is about amount and accumulation and competition. This is about flow and allowing it to come through. And we need some of this, yes, but not as much as we have going on right now. We need a lot more of this. And then this can relax and we can have a healthy relationship with one another, with money, with the community of life, with the natural world, and with the earth herself, and with future generations. So a healthy relationship with money, in my view, is key to everything we care about.
Wow, first of all, I had goosebumps and energy flowing through my body for so long as you were talking. It's just wow. Thank you for demonstrating the bird. I think it's such a great analogy and really embodying that understanding. That's why I'm so passionate myself, especially about women having money and having sovereign economics, because that will change everything.
Yes.
Women will have the power of choice. They will not be codependent on the men for their choices, for their freedom. And I also really trust that we have it. I mean, we all have masculine and feminine, of course, but women have more the feminine qualities naturally, and they will make that flow again with money. And I think we really have the vision, you know. Thank you for this vision. It really brings hope and brings true. I mean, we heard it in you know, some ways from different prophets. And yeah, I'm definitely feeling the rise of women. It's definitely happening all over. So yeah, thank you for this.
It's also, we can also see the masculine kind of screaming for attention and almost in a death throes of, you know, with the war in the Ukraine and some of our, you know, political strife and divisiveness. I like to think of it rather than as a terrible problem, sort of the final like death throes of something that's really no longer has its grip on us, and you know, surviving to take over and dominate and force. But we need to let it die. You know, often I like to use this metaphor. Another metaphor is to hospice the death of the old structures and ways of being and institutions that no longer serve us, because they are dying. They're inappropriate. They're out of date. They're unsustainable, and they will not last. And they're dying, and dying kind of loudly. But if we hospice them, they'll die with dignity and some grace, and with some gratitude for all that has brought us. So hospicing the death of the old structures and systems that no longer serve us, while we midwife the birth of the new ones that will serve us. And midwifing and hospicing are very feminine. They're about witness and love and compassion. And as feminine humans, as women who are dealing with money, we deal with it in such a different way. And we don't need to be billionaires. We don't need to prove ourselves. We don't need to be richer than or better than or wealthier than. We need to be responsible planetary citizens using the resources that include money in a way that nourish ourselves, our families, and life itself. And that's the way women are much more naturally attuned to that. And when women try to become men in order to make more money, we lose the very essence of who we are sometimes. So I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, and so it's difficult because the world of money is totally dominated by competition and masculinity, and it's a very yang world. So you do need to be able to navigate the yang world without becoming something you're not or someone you're not, and that's very, very difficult. I have enormous respect for women who've navigated that well and have become prosperous in their own right. I just think it's just so important, and I know you do too. I congratulate women like yourself who are not only demonstrating that but teaching it.
Yeah, same here. Thank you so much for all you do. And tell us about your new book.
Well, I recently finished this book. It's called Living a Committed Life, Finding Freedom and Fulfillment in a Purpose Larger than Yourself.
Wow.
And it's really about all the people that I've met or worked with in my life that I found through living a committed life myself. And I've connected with them because they've lived a committed life. And by that, I mean living for a purpose larger than your own self starring you, a purpose of service, a purpose that you've come to make a difference and leave this planet better than you found it. And your life is governed by that rather than your own wants and needs or your own kind of petty desires, but that your life is turned over to something larger. And so I write about, your country. I read about Archbishop Tutu and Nelson Mandela, and my experience of being at the inauguration of Mandela. I was there the last day of apartheid, and I was there at the inauguration. I write about Jane Goodall. I write about Mother Teresa, who I had the privilege of working with, both of them. And I also write about the unsung heroes, men and women in conditions of hunger and poverty in India, Bangladesh, Sub-Saharan Africa, Guinea-Bissau, Senegal, Ghana, who have found their dharma through service and through telling the truth about who they are and making a difference. And then I tell stories of the Amazon rainforest, where I work now with indigenous people, with 30 indigenous nations, to preserve the most biodiverse place on earth, the Amazon rainforest, the source of our climate system. So it's a book about those people, but it's also about you, about me, and about how to find your committed life and live it fully. Because in living a committed life, a life that's committed to something larger than your own life, you find freedom and fulfillment for yourself. And if you're just living a life that's all about you, there's so much noise in your head. Am I pretty enough? Am I young enough? Am I tall enough? Am I successful enough? All the negative thoughts, kind of the noise gets very loud. But if you're committed to something larger than your own life, then that's in the foreground and all that noise is in the background. It's still there because it's part of being human, but it doesn't have you, you have it. It doesn't manage you, you manage it. And what really determines your choices and where you go and who you're with and what path you take is the commitments you've made, the large and powerful commitments to service. So the book is about the distinctions of living a committed life and how to find your committed life in the midst of all the wants and needs that haunt you. And I tell a little bit of the soul of money work too, because everybody, money is the big part of making our way and making our way with integrity. So it covers kind of both topics. And I'm happy that you asked me about it, because I think it's a book worthy of our times we're living in, where it's kind of an all hands on deck time. We need everybody to step up.
Right, exactly. Couldn't agree more. And, this is exactly the on topic of the summit, because, from my experience, I really trust that life happens for us, not to us, and it's here to teach us lessons. And if we understand that and we shifting from becoming the victims of our lives to the heroes and sheroes of our lives, we can see the initiation along the way that life has made us to be who we are, if we are going through the process of our emotional intelligence and our mental intelligence, and we cultivate in the lessons, and we here to be of service however we choose to express it, right? And I'm really feeling that, especially with COVID shattering so much of the noise, that people were just going about their life, and not stopping, to assess. They've been in their comfort zone, not stopping to assess whether they, fulfilled on a soul level, whether they doing what they're here to do. And I think that COVID really created such a mess, movement of awakening, especially among women, that has time to stop and really assess where they are at with their lives. And I feel that still many women are in that confusion of, okay, so not that old world, but haven't found a transition into what is working for them. And I think that your book is an inspiration about, we all have our purpose. It's a given. And it's when we bring it online and own it, we can really create prosperity with it as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a really important time, and I agree with the pandemic being almost a feedback. I think the climate crisis is feedback from the mother. Everything comes from the mother, from the earth, including the virus. And the virus is as tragic as it was for many, many people who lost their lives or lost their family members or lost their jobs or lost their businesses. It was the disruption that we, in many ways, yearned for. The indigenous people said, in some primordial part of who we are, we've been yearning for something powerful and sacred enough to disrupt the way we were living so that we could rethink and reimagine, resource our lives. And although the pandemic isn't over, it did force new contemplation, new going within. And I like to think of it, I think you'll like this metaphor, as morning sickness for a pregnant species that's going to give birth to a new way of being. And if you've had children, when you don't know you're pregnant and you're throwing up in the morning and you're feeling weird in the afternoons and you're tired and you feel out of sorts, you think you're sick. And then you go to the doctor, you find out you're pregnant, and it's like suddenly, oh, I'm pregnant. And you have a context, a beautiful context for throwing up every morning. It's not so bad because you're going to have a baby. And so I feel like if we know, if we create this, let's say this frame, that this is morning sickness for a species that's lost its way and is being reborn. And we're now entering a kind of pregnancy that every pregnancy doesn't produce a child. So we need to really realize that we're pregnant and that we can and have the opportunity and the privilege of giving birth to a new kind of human being, a human being that is more yin and not so yang, a human being who is compassionate, a human being who is kind and part of the community of life, rather than trying to dominate the community of life and exploit it, comes from the earth rather than lives on the earth, a human family that is of the lineage of life itself rather than the dominator of it. And that kind of human being, I think, is we're pregnant with that kind of human being. And you're working on that, I think. This program, this Beautiful Rise Summit, is about that. I'm working on it. And there's a critical mass of us that are like the imaginal cells inside of a caterpillar, working to use the nutritive soup of our culture to create a butterfly, to create that metamorphosis, to be reborn. So I think that the pandemic is a kind of, was kind of like morning sickness, and it's waning, but we're starting to experience that we're pregnant.
Right. Yeah. I can say for myself, I have given birth to 3 incredible human beings that they really are for me the where we are going towards. So I am blessed to live with that at home and seeing what is possible for our humanity. So yeah, it's really, really amazing. My boy is now 18, so I kind of can see a little bit of his leadership qualities, with high integrity, with so much emotional intelligence, with so much feminine and masculine united, with such intuition and so much goodness that is just really amazing.
Yeah, congratulations. And you have an 18-year-old son, and then how old are the others?
And then girls 14 and 11.
Oh, wonderful. Wow. Good for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And my son, you know, I'm a very alternative mother. I gave birth at home. I breastfed until long. I have not vaccinated. I know I shouldn't. Sometimes there's that fear of being ostracized. But this is my truth, and I'm not expecting no one to agree with me, but I always went my own way, and I took my kids to travel the world for 4 years. And when my boy was 12, he told me that I'm depriving of formal education. And he wanted academics, and we came back home. We were living in the jungle of Costa Rica. We came back home, and I enrolled him into high school, and he now graduated with full house merits in all his subjects.
Wow.
Got accepted to law school, which I was hesitant, right? I'm not the typical Jewish mama that, drives my kids to law school. It's quite the opposite. My kid drags me to law school. And I'm like, saying, well, I just hope he's going to do more soul stuff. And he tells me that, he's not going to be a lawyer. He wants to know the law to make real change. So yeah, this is what I feel so much hope for where we are going, really.
Yeah, my granddaughter is my oldest granddaughter has just started law school, and very, very proud of her. And she's really interested in environmental and human rights law, which I'm very, very excited about, because we need lawyers who are thinking that way rather than lawyers that are suing, litigating for money. Really holding us to account for our responsibilities to the planet and to each other, and to an honest and beautiful culture that I know these young people that are so outstanding will bring forth, and everything we can do to set the stage for them, and to believe in them, and to invest in them, and do everything we can to keep these crises not from the crises that we're all experiencing are appropriate breakdowns, because the institutions that are breaking down need to be recreated from a different place, from a deeper integrity. And so their dissolution, their collapse is appropriate. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. So
you're just giving. I just literally, sorry, I'm getting in because I really want to say that I've had this conversation with my boy about an hour and a half ago, literally. So it's very on point, and I actually want him to listen to this session, because he felt quite a lot of fear about seeing everything crumbling. And he told me all the institutions are crumbling, and we are yet to experience a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. And I said, suffering is a choice. Pain can be there, but suffering is a choice. Right?
Yeah,
and so true. This is where our conversation has went. So it's amazing that you now talking exactly about that.
Well, you might suggest he read The Soul of Money, because in that book I talk about Buckminster Fuller, the great humanist, and he was an engineer and architect, and was called the grandfather of the future in the 20th century. And your son may not know his name, but Buckminster Fuller was a very, very powerful thinker, innovator. He invented an electric car in 1949. Sure. Because he knew that fossil fuels were ending. He He created the geodesic dome. And he said in 1976 that in 50 years, right around now, all the major institutions of humankind would start to become so dysfunctional and so unable to function that they would be dissolving. And that we would, because they're all rooted in a you or me paradigm, in a scarcity paradigm. And that's an inaccurate foundation. The economy is rooted in a you or me paradigm. Either you make it at my expense or I make it at your expense. Education is rooted in that. Even religion is rooted in that. And clearly, our governance is rooted in that. And he said that it'll take really dissolving, having the institution just collapse, to recreate them in a you and me paradigm, a paradigm of sufficiency where you and I can both make it at no one's expense. And it will be painful, but it'll be necessary. And if we have the courage, not if, but we need to exhibit the courage to get through the difficulty. It will be difficult of having everything collapse around us. Very difficult for your son, for my granddaughter, my children, my grandchildren. At the same time, they're up to it, or they wouldn't be born in this time in history. Mm-hmm. I think that's their Buckminster Fuller also said that your children are your elders in universe time. Sure. They've come into a more complete, more evolved universe than we can ever understand, except through their eyes. And I think that's true also. Mm. So aren't we fortunate that we have children and grandchildren who are our elders in universe time?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Such a blessing.
Yes. Really wonderful. Wow. Wow.
Right. So beautiful. Yeah, I need to bring this beautiful conversation to a wrap. And I also know that you have a beautiful gift to share with our audience that they can further take a few steps with you. So would you like to speak about it?
Well, I'll say first that there's a little program. It's a short one, but it's like a little mastermind called 3 Steps to Money Forgiveness. Mm. And most of us have made mistakes with money. I don't think there's anybody who hasn't. And then we get kind of caught in feeling guilty and bad and wrong and thinking there's something wrong with us, when in fact the culture kind of pushes us to make mistakes with money. So it's a beautiful gift, 3 Steps to Money Forgiveness, that's on my website, soulofmoney.org, soulofmoney.org. And that's a free gift for everyone who would like it. And then I want to just encourage people to buy The Soul of Money, which is the book that I wrote first. And then this is new, and I'm so excited about it, Living a Committed Life. This is the new book, so I want to invite people to order that. It's available on all the online bookstores, and also on you can listen to it on Audible. So, but the free gift is 3 Steps to Money Forgiveness.
Thank you so much. We'll have all the links below and all your follow-up on socials links. And with this, let's call it a wrap. Thank you so much for being here. I really, truly appreciate you and what you do in the world and how you're showing up and all the body of your work. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your work. Thank you for giving birth to 3 wonderful children. Thank you for teaching women how to earn in a way that's consistent with their values and their divinity. And thank you for including me in your wonderful summit and in your wonderful space and in your heart. I appreciate it very much, and I loved talking with you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. And for you, dear audience, thank you. And until the next time we meet, blessings.